when I've got a draft that I'm pretty happy with, I love telling AI tools that they're a master editor and giving it some parameters that just help me tighten things up in a way that before I would have had to wait maybe 3 or 4 days before I'd forgotten the copy
Right.
to come back with those fresh eyes. So there's this kind of sections of the process where there's brainstorming hooks and angles. There's setting up different frameworks and structures. There's analyzing voice of customer research. And then there's kind of editing and finessing through it. But I do like doing the writing bit. I think that I like holding on to that. But at the same time, if it's the end of the day and I've still got to write that email, I will lean on tools a little more than other days. And I'm okay with that.
If you're enjoying the show, hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. You'll get the latest on marketing, AI, and how to grow your business. It only takes 2 seconds and really helps the show grow. So please hit subscribe and then continue listening. So Belinda, you run Copyright Matters and you're also a copy coach. So we'll get into all of the AI and copywriting today, which I'm really excited about. But I wanted to know, this is something I've been asking guests kind of recently, is what is your biggest kind of pet peeve or ick when it comes to AI? Whether that's like, automated messaging, outreach, or people who copy paste prompts. Like, yeah, if you have one, a biggest ick when it comes to AI?
I think what's a real sticking point for me right now is how people are responding to AI, especially in the copywriting world, because AI has obviously learned from the way people write, how they write in stories, because they've taken on the fiction, how we write in our marketing. So it's learned how we write by how we write. And then I see a lot of posts going, if you use an M dash, then it's a sure sign you've used AI. Or if you use the formula of 3, then it's a signal you've used AI. And there's a real shaming around it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, that's a style. It's a technique. It's just accurate punctuation. And so I kind of get a bit like, oh, loosen up and move on around how people, this current trend of like, here are the 3 signs. I know you've used AI. And so it's okay to use AI, and AI is just reflecting the way we write. So that's something that kind of sticks in my nose a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean. Because sometimes people do use M dashes, like they're a common like thing to use. Sometimes I use them. I think it's and even emojis. Like people are like, oh, you shouldn't put emojis in blog posts, and I'm like, well, there are times when maybe it is helpful, and I know successful copywriters who do use emojis, in a strategic way, not overdoing it, of course. But yeah, I agree. There's these certain like, oh, that must be AI. And like you said, like a shaming almost around it. That's something I hadn't thought about. But yeah, it's almost like, you shouldn't have it be detectable by AI. But in actuality, I actually had another guest mention that for AI to pick up your content and put it into like a search result in an LLM, it actually needs to have like a certain structure for AI to be able to scan it easily. And therefore, like if you do use AI in your content, it actually can be really helpful. So I thought that was an interesting point too.
Yeah, that is interesting because it's much like SEO when people said, oh, if you use keywords, it'll ruin your content. No, it doesn't. It actually makes it more findable. So we're struggling to find this balance and how things work. But, and I agree. Sometimes I have to tell ChatGPT, calm down on the emojis and calm down on the M dashes. I don't instinctively use them that much, but I do use them. And I just feel like saying to people, don't second guess punctuation
Mm-hmm.
because you're worried that people will call it AI.
Yeah. And even like, I know there's this thing of like people feel like, especially in like corporate emails, oh, you can't use too many exclamation points. And something another guest said actually was like, have you met me? Like, I'm just an enthusiastic person. Like, I love using exclamation marks, and I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's just showing up as yourself, but there's this shaming around, I know you've used AI and it's a cheat. That's probably the thing.
Mm-hmm. I like that. No, thanks for sharing. And so you've obviously been in the copywriting space for a while. Do you remember like an exact moment where it kind of clicked like, oh, I want to do this for my career? And what sort of made you decide to do that?
Oh, there was a definite moment. So I actually did 10 years in IT. That's what I studied at university. And then I worked in the IT industry for 10 years. And then I actually realized the marketing department were having way more fun. And so I went back to uni and I got my master's in marketing. And it was when I started working marketing jobs that I actually went to like a 1 day conference. And a copywriter got up and was talking about headline formulas, which I was taking crazy amounts of notes. But at the end of that, she started talking about becoming a freelance copywriter.
Mhm.
And that was the lightning bolt moment for me where I didn't even realize that was a career choice that was available.
Mhm.
I didn't know anyone that ran their own business. My parents had corporate jobs. Everyone I knew had corporate jobs. And so that was a real earthquake for me. And so I quietly registered my business and I actually got my boss to pay for the copywriting course
Oh, cool.
that this person was advertising. And then after 6 months, I quit and became a full-time copywriter. And it was just amazing to me that my favorite part of marketing could be its own job
Mm.
and that I didn't have to work for anyone else. So yeah, it was a revolution in my eyes.
No, that's cool. And it's something that I really like as well because I also do a lot of copywriting in my business too, and it's something that sometimes I'm like, oh, I could get paid to do this, like this is great, and it's so creative, it's so fun, but it's also very data driven as well and scientific in terms of like formulas and different word placements and like I'm just thinking of scientific advertising and just all these really interesting books that talk about the science behind copywriting. And so I agree, it's really cool that copywriting is such a fun industry that we can work in. And so
Yeah.
yeah. And so like what is it that you love about copywriting, or what is it that you kind of focus on within the copywriting? Because obviously there's different sections of copywriting. We've got direct response, we've got content writing, like there's all these different kind of types. Like what do you prefer, or what do you enjoy doing, and why?
I like doing first impressions copy. That's what I call it, where it's often the first touch point someone has with your business. So it could be the website, and it could be like when someone signs up to your list. So welcome sequences. Right now, I'm currently designing like an onboarding system for a coach. And so I love these first impression moments where you really get to write copy that says, this is how we're showing up. This is who I am. And what I love most about copywriting as a whole, though, is the fact that there's always more to learn, which might be a bit intimidating to some people. But, like when you learn any new thing, you kind of learn it in the broad brushstrokes. And then the more you're into it, the more depth you see to it. And so I love that I'm still learning about how to drive consumer behavior and how to persuade people without shaming them, like how different nuanced techniques to help people feel really seen and understood. That's a real kick that I get out of those moments in copywriting. And then of course there's just that moment where you write a really banging headline or just a great sentence and you're like, oh, this is the best feeling in the world. So I just really enjoy the end-to-end process
Hmm.
of writing, which is why I read back what I write quite a lot. Like I know some people who just like, no, I wrote it. I wrote the weekly email and I sent it out. But I do love coming back to things I've written and thinking about how I could have written it differently without obsessing, but also just appreciating the craftsmanship that I like to put into it.
No, I think that's really cool. And it's something I really enjoy too. And I have a background in music and songwriting too. So it's for me, like writing a song is quite similar where you kind of get into this creative flow and you get the ideas out and you're not trying to make it sound good. You're just trying to get the idea out. And kind of for me, I had to like shelve that perfectionist of, oh, this doesn't rhyme. And it's like, it's okay, it doesn't matter. Like we'll come back, and just kind of getting it
Yes.
out and then coming back, after a few days and editing it, tweaking it, and kind of because it's like two different kind of headspaces. Where the first one, it's like you're in this creative zone, this flow, and then I like what you said about coming back and editing or fine tuning or even just appreciating. Oh, like I really nailed this. Like, and that I think that's really cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the process, and I do enjoy the creativity, but I think I enjoy the technique of it more than that.
Mhm.
Knowing, because I would say I've never considered myself a terribly creative person. And so if you went back to like 20-year-old me who was programming a mainframe and said, "You're going to be a writer one day," I honestly would have laughed in your face. And so the idea of doing that now, I love that there's a technique and a science and a craft to it,
Mhm.
and there's a structure
Mhm.
that can help your creativity really flourish.
Yeah, it's something that just popped into my head of like people think of routines as being really restrictive and limiting, but there's so much freedom because if you have a routine, you have predictability, you have space to experiment and explore. And, you know,
Yes.
it's similar thing where it's like, oh, if you have a technique and you have these kind of rules, and then your creativity kind of wraps in between all of that, which is cool. So do you have
Yeah.
like a few kind of go-to techniques when it comes to copywriting?
More about my process in that when I'm writing, I'm spending some time absorbing the material, as in for me, that's the copywriting brief, and it might be any extra research that I've done.
Mhm.
And I always try and create a framework for my copy. And so that's me mapping my copy out first. And I have a couple of go-to frameworks like pain, agitate, outcome, solution. Although I tend to think of it like pain or promise. So there's different ways of connecting with people. Instead of agitate, I look for alignment. And then I like to have the outcome and then the solution. So that for me is a very loose skeleton. And so once I spend time with the material that I'm working with, I like to use a framework like that to help me organize my ideas. And then after that's complete, then I start writing. And so for me, what I used to do is just kind of open up a document and read through the brief and then just kind of see what happened. But then I spent so long editing and I couldn't tell what was good and what was just there.
Mhm.
So for me, the technique of systemizing my writing, which for some people will be like, that sounds so rigid, but creating a process means that, like you mentioned, the different mindsets between writing and editing.
Mhm.
There are also there's the researching mindset, there's the strategizing mindset, there's the writing, and then there's the editing. And for me, creating those different spaces helps me not only create better work, but it reduces the time that I take.
No, I like that you mentioned that, and that's also one that I've used a lot, the PAS structure. And I actually find it really helpful because then I know like what I'm writing, who I'm writing to,
Yeah.
what are their pain points, what am I trying to communicate, and it helps me bring in a lot more specificity. I actually watched a webinar from I think it was Joanna Weeb. I don't know how to say her last name. Weeb. And
Deep.
she sort of would like pull detailed sentences from client reviews and testimonials or from Reddit and kind of like copy and paste all of this kind of data, which it sounds like similar to the research and strategizing. And then you kind of
Mhm.
have this bank of information to draw from to then write your
Yes.
content. And I just think it's just in my experience so much easier than just going from like a blank canvas of like, oh, what am I going to write? It's like, okay, well, it doesn't have to be a strict rigid structure or formula. Like it can bend and flow, but to have some idea of who am I writing to, and what are their pain points, and how does this product give them a solution to what they're struggling with. So I think that's, yeah, really interesting.
Yeah.
Mm. And so I know you did a workshop recently on AI and copywriting. Did you want to maybe just touch on some of the stuff you talked about? I know we sort of had a brief chat before we hit record, but yeah, just around kind of, people being all in or all out with AI and just kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, because I mean, everywhere I go now, someone will say, "Were you really worried about your job because AI's taken over?" And there's a lot of copywriters who are really worried. And, AI is writing a lot of copy now. So it's a huge shakeup to the industry. And to be honest, the copywriters who are getting ahead of the curve and starting to learn how to use AI and learn how to speak to their clients about it as well,
Hmm.
are the ones who will outlast it because it's a tool. And when I did this workshop, it started off as an idea of how can you train AI tools to sound like you. I was like, well, that's actually relatively easy, but that's just the first step. Because once a tool can sound like you, that doesn't mean it can automatically create really, really great, persuasive, high converting marketing. And so there's all these other pieces that go into using AI tools that can help speed up your creative process while still making sure that you're a key part of the process, because ChatGPT doesn't know my stories. It doesn't know my context and my background and my history. It can write to the PAS framework, but I got to put all the information in. And so I think it gets complicated when people start feeling like using AI tools is cheating, um, and that it will kill our creativity. And it's just a really interesting phase where we have to make sure we don't outsource all our thinking, and we have to be strategic about how we can use some of these tools to speed up our workflow. And of course, asking ourselves, how much do I want to really speed it up? Because we just talked about how much we love writing. So which of the bits do we want to hold on to? Because we actually really love doing them.
It's something, I'm glad you touched on that, because that's something I was talking to another guest actually the other day about was, even not even necessarily from an enjoyment perspective, but is this actually going to speed up the process? And is it going to do a good job, rather than, because it might not. I know, certain tasks might be faster just to do them ourselves, and so especially if, like you said, almost like the tonality that ChatGPT can get, that's one part of it, is the tonality. But then you've got, the structure of the content, you've got headlines, you've got sales pages, there's, customer information, there's business information, there's all these different kind of parts. And really knowing how to like connect it all together in a really persuasive way, like that's something that I don't think, like I don't know when ChatGPT will be able to do that, but I haven't seen it be able to do that yet. And to really, I think that's where the copywriters or the marketers' skills are going to come in, is like knowing what is good copy, and is this actually talking to the pain points? Has ChatGPT actually researched the proper customer pain points? Or are there more that I'm aware of that aren't super common, but really important? And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting sort of space to work in. Like, what would you recommend to people who are in the marketing or copywriting space to like how to use AI in their workflows?
Well, I think definitely for brainstorming ideas and hooks and potential angles, that can be really useful, because I know from my own experience, sometimes I just get a little set in my ways. What I used to do is bring out like a swipe file just to kind of inspire me. But I think that's a fun way that you can use AI tools to go, you know, let's brainstorm 10 more hooks, or come up with 20 left field strategic and impactful angles, just to kind of get us thinking. But it's also making sure that because everyone would have heard the you get out what you put in. And so we do really have to make sure that we're putting in important context into the session, and training it on the voice of our client as well. So there's these really strategic moments that we might have done manually that GPT can really speed up for us. Oh, I say GPT, but I mean all AI tools. I think it's incredibly useful for processing voice of customer data. And so that's, we used to have to go through transcripts and highlight phrasing, and then put the phrasing in the spreadsheet, and then spend hours reviewing the spreadsheet to identify themes and insights. AI tools can do that in minutes now. But the key thing is, like you said, we still need to rely on what we know as humans, because AI tools will still hallucinate. When I've done voice of customer analysis on transcripts and interviews, and I've said, can you make sure you pull out the quote that supports the theme? I've gone, I don't remember anyone saying that. And I've actually fact checked ChatGPT, and it's gone, oh, you're right. I didn't actually say that. And so it's really important to be able to have the oversight of, actually, I know about these other challenges that I think are more strategically relevant in this moment, or I don't remember anyone actually saying that. And that's where the humanness can come in. When it comes to writing, I think AI tools can be useful, like I mentioned, hooks and angles and things like that. It can also be useful for things like segues. I know when people are writing emails, when they think, I've got a story I want to tell, but I don't know how to connect it to the business lesson, or I don't even know what business lesson this might connect to. That's often how I use AI tools, where I'm like, I got the stories or I've got the lessons. What kind of stories would help me intro this? And that can be really helpful in any kind of copywriting where you go, I've got this intro bit. I'm pretty happy with that, but I don't know how to connect it to this other bit. And it's just kind of working on some of those transitions. And in the before times, I would have had to go for a walk with the dog, go for a hike, have my 30th shower of the day, or just do those things that helps our brain do that creative connections in the background, which is still really important. But sometimes I'm like, I'm on a deadline. I haven't got time. So it can help speed up some of those smoothing out bits. Definitely with editing as well. When I've got a draft that I'm pretty happy with, I love telling AI tools that they're a master editor and giving it some parameters that just help me tighten things up in a way that before I would have had to wait maybe 3 or 4 days before I'd forgotten the copy.
Right.
To come back with those fresh eyes. So there's this kind of sections of the process where there's brainstorming hooks and angles, there's setting up different frameworks and structures, there's analyzing voice of customer research, and then there's kind of editing and finessing through it. But I do like doing the writing bit. I think that I like holding on to that. But at the same time, if it's the end of the day and I've still got to write that email, I will lean on tools a little more than other days. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And I think I liked the kind of like clarification around, like almost like it's a brainstorming buddy, it's helping to just generate ideas and what do you think about this, rather than just going in and being like, oh, can you just create all this content for me? It's like, okay, I've got this idea. Like, what do you think? How could we brainstorm or come at it from different angles? And I like that you mentioned the hallucinating and needing to check stuff, because I've also experienced that in 2 instances, actually. One time I was what I do sometimes is I'll transcribe YouTube videos and then drop the transcription in and ask for a summary if I don't want to watch the whole video. And so I did that once, and I actually wanted to check how accurate it was. So I watched the full video and then I got the summary, and I was like, please give me like a really detailed summary, like anything that's like really interesting or specific, like please highlight it. Anyway, it kind of just gave me a summary, and I was like, oh, you missed like a few of these really key points. And then it was like, oh, sorry about that. And then it went back and gave me all of the like really interesting specific tidbits, but it needed that prompt. Whereas if I hadn't watched the video, I wouldn't have known, oh, like you skipped over all this stuff. And then the other day I was also making cold brew coffee, and I was trying to do the maths and get the concentration right. And it gave me one answer about, how strong it was in terms of caffeine content. And then I went a few times, back and forth. And then it was like, oh, now you're saying it's a different caffeine content to what you said before. And it was like, oh, sorry about that. So yeah, I think that it is a great tool, like you mentioned, but just being aware of these like kind of nuances or different ways it can hallucinate, especially if we're writing copy for a client. And obviously there's a bit of, skin in the game there to really make sure we're doing things right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I know a lot of people are using AI tools for great impact in their own business is things like creating systems and workflows that remove bottlenecks. And I think that's a focus where, yes, we can use it for writing, but there's so many other ways that we can actually speed up in our business. So we can slow down for the things that we love and speed up in terms of automations and systems and workflows and things like that instead. And also strategic brainstorming for our own business. And that's a really fun what if that I like to use AI tools for, to really kind of push my own thinking beyond the way I get in my own way, which we all do. And so that's a fun way to kind of go, what if this were true? And what if that were true? And like, as an 8-figure business owner, what would this email funnel look like? You're like, damn, that's actually a really good idea. So that's, that's a way as well. So if for people who are writing, thinking that AI tools are taking away the writing or the creativity, use AI tools to do the other bits that you don't like, and then hold space for the bits that you do.
Mm. No, I think that's cool. And especially like I've even asked ChatGPT, like, please ask me questions. So like sometimes I'll ask it questions, but then other times I'm like, okay, this is my idea. Like, can you help me figure this out? And just ask me like a series of questions. And then in that process, I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about things that way, and that way I'm not always having to rely on a human. And I also, I like that you mentioned the piece about doing the work that we enjoy and that makes us come alive rather than just automating everything. And that kind of can sometimes take the joy out of it, but really going, okay, what areas do I really enjoy in my business and where can I focus on? And what are the parts that I can automate or build internal systems for? And so have you built any kind of automations or outsourced certain areas of your business that you don't enjoy?
I haven't built anything, but I have started leaning into automations and integrations that already exist.
Mm.
For example, using Zaps, and I've just recently switched to Make, but I'll call them Zaps because we don't know what we're talking about. Where it's like, if someone fills out this form, like when they join my membership, for example, and they fill out this form, then it kicks off a series of actions. And I have those as manual tasks, and now they're automated. And they're just small things, but the fact that if someone takes an action, the ClickUp task is created, the Airtable record is created, they're automatically added to the Hero podcast. These are things that are relatively straightforward, but I was paying a VA to do or doing them myself. And now they're done automatically, which frees me up for the more personal touch points, which goes back to that kind of first impressions. I love these moments where we first meet each other. And if I'm not faffing around with admin in ClickUp, I can record a better video that welcomes you to my space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's cool. And it's interesting. It reminds me, I saw a connection on LinkedIn who said they've been using kind of similar thing, like for client onboarding or gathering client information. For instance, they'd have, say, someone books a call, like a prospective client, based on their information and the details they fill out. Please do like a research of their business number, their business name, their website, grab a little, paragraph summary so that I know a bit of background before we get on the call. And it like compiles everything into a spreadsheet. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool idea, like something that would be quite manual that then can help obviously save time, but also elevate you as a business owner to come prepared to the meeting of, oh, I have all this background information about your business. And, like rather than just coming in blind, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like on a call with a new client, I like to bring a few little insights and ideas that can be freely shared. And so it's a great way to go review all their marketing and come up with a few easy closing gaps that I can share on the call. And that would have been stuff that might have taken an hour before and now can be done in a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm. No, it's super interesting to see the shift, and obviously how exciting it is to be able to outsource these things that we don't necessarily enjoy or that can help us elevate our business offering, even if we're a smaller team or what have you. So, and then I
Yeah.
guess in terms of like kind of copywriting advice, what's some of either the best or the worst sort of copywriting advice you've heard in your career?
For AI related or just in general?
Just in general, it could be AI, could be not AI.
That's a good question. The worst advice, I think my brain is just going, all these ideas. I think I get very frustrated when this is more for copywriters rather than about writing, but I get very frustrated when copywriters believe that they have to price themselves low in order to earn their dues and charge higher rates. There's this kind of, you've got to earn the right to charge more. And so I find it really frustrating when there's like pricing and charging information that's shared that has copywriters earning sweet FA, because I think that is offensive. And there's also people who perpetuate this idea that it's not a high value task and therefore isn't worth paying more. So that's something I always get on my soapbox about. I also find it, and this is really about writing as well, but the advice that you have to find out what your unique differentiator is, I find frustrating as well, because there's a lot of us as business owners, especially when we start, we think, I don't know what makes me different. And it's a common question a copywriter will ask the client. What makes you unique? What makes you different to everyone else? And it's actually a really hard question to answer if you don't have a lot of years of experience under your belt where you know what you do and the purpose it serves. When you're just starting out, you're just trying to figure it out, like how to actually write and how to run a business, and you're trying not to have panic attacks when someone actually says yes. And so to then think, what do I do that's different? And so instead of that, I always encourage people to embrace what they're doing with the best that they have. Like, write to the best that you know how to write and keep learning. Run a project and try and deliver the best service experience that you know how to, but then keep learning. And I think if you showcase things like your personality, but you also showcase your proof and your process, and you talk about your clients' pain points in your marketing, then that helps you become what I call choosable, because we all just want to choose the right person for us, and it's not necessarily the best person in the whole industry.
Right.
So people make choices for lots of different reasons. And so it's less like a writing tip, but more about, when I see that advice, I think it keeps people stuck. And it annoys me.
No,
Because I'm like, just get out there and get some runs on the board and get some projects. You will figure it out as you go along.
No, I think that's an important thing. And I think too, like, I'd love to explore this a bit more, but like, because I think pricing is such a challenging one for copywriters or even for business owners who are doing retainer models or fixed price projects or commission-based structures. Like, there's so many different pricing strategies and structures. And I agree, you don't have to be the best in the space you're in. You just have to be the right fit for that client. And that's something I've experienced, where I would say, like, I'm not the best copywriter by any standard, but like, I'm good. But what sets me apart with my clients is I have an accounting and finance background. And so because of the legality in the industry and because of the technicality, they want to work with me because of that. So it's like pairing those two together. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity for people to, if you have like a special focus, like maybe you're passionate about music or gaming or, what have you, and honing in even specific to an industry or a trade or something. There's all different ways to go about it. But yeah, I'm curious, like, because I know you're also a copy coach, like what do you advise, I guess, to your students from a pricing perspective? Because I guess that's also something business owners would face when they're hiring a copywriter of, oh, do we want to pay them on a retainer fee? Do we want a project based? Do we want commission? And that might vary, obviously, depending on the type of launch or product or service.
Yeah, absolutely. Because pricing is so tricky, and it's made trickier with AI as well. Because people, it's people can say, "Well, I can just get AI to write it." And I think one of the key things that we were talking about before is this human overlay is still so important, not only in using the tools, but in the service experience. Because there's a whole ton of people running businesses who don't know about AI. They don't know about automations. They're saying, have you heard about podcasts?
Yeah.
Podcasts are amazing. Right. So
Right.
what they'd want is they want to be able to talk to someone who says, I get it. I can do this. Leave it with me. I'm taking care of it. That human service experience, that's really where the value is. Yes, we have our craft, and that is important too. So when it comes to pricing, you have to be able to talk about pricing. And you have to be able to talk to people who are like, well, I can just get AI to write it, or I can hire someone from Fiverr, or I didn't realize it was going to cost that much. You have to be able to navigate those without spiraling into your own self-worth,
Mhm.
because they're completely different, and what I would say to people when they're talking about, because people are really surprised how much copywriters can cost.
Yeah, there seems to be a
And
huge spectrum, like from like low pricing up to like 10, 20, $30,000. Like it really can vary depending on the
it is.
copywriting person and the type. Yeah.
And I said, so I think when it comes to coming up with your own pricing, what I recommend new copywriters do is, like, there's some industry metrics where you say, if you're a beginner copywriter, here's a good range. If you're a middling copywriter, here's a good range. Experience, here's a good range. You just pick a number, and then each time you get a couple of projects under your belt, you increase your pricing, because every time you do a couple of projects, you are more experienced. And then that is a way that you have this constant, you're constantly raising your prices, and you're building your muscles to not be like with your cap in your hand saying, oh, I think I'd like to put my prices up now. I talk to copywriters who have the same pricing from their first year of copywriting, and they've got 3 years of experience. Like,
Right.
you are so much more now. We need to let go of that version 1 pricing. And of course, when you're talking to clients about pricing, I recommend copywriters have at least a starting out price on their website, because when I'm looking to hire a service provider and I'm looking on their website, I want to know, is this a $1,000 decision, or is this a $10,000 decision?
Mhm.
Because I don't want to find out it's a $10,000 decision on a call with someone, because that's embarrassing.
Mhm.
No one wants to have to go, I can't afford that. And so using what we call price anchoring can help you show clients numbers, so that when they get the quote or when they're on the call with you, they're like, oh, okay, I've seen this number. I've seen it could be between 1,500 and 2,500, or between 5,000 and 7,000. I've seen these numbers. They're not quite shocking to me anymore. And it's okay for someone to say, oh, that's a little bit more than I wanted to pay. That doesn't mean they're not going to pay it, especially if they see it as a valuable investment. So then we start talking about how to position your service as a valuable investment rather than just an expense. And I think once you do one project with someone, one thing I coach copywriters on is, if you're doing one project with someone, that the door is open to start looking at other work, especially if
Mm.
they get a website. If I've written a website for someone, that's the start of a new phase of their marketing. And so that opens the door to lots of other things. And that's when you can start going, well, let's talk about a retainer or follow-on projects, or it's about the relationship and fostering that.
Mm.
Because, when I hire someone, I don't want to have to look for a new person. I just want you forever, because I've already done the hard work of choosing you. I just want you forever now.
Right. And
Yeah.
it seems like such a mindset thing. I guess like products are different because obviously there's usually like a benchmark or an industry average of this is how much a product costs. But when it's a service, there's so many variables. And, like I've quoted the same price to like, say, 2 different clients. One of them like went non-responsive and balked at the price. And the other one was like, yeah, cool. When can we start? And so it's very, challenging sometimes to be like, and then sometimes you get an easy yes, and then you're like, oh, should I have charged more? And so, and because all of the
Yeah.
project deliverables change as well, and so I find it quite a difficult space because I want people to have value for their money, but it's also trying to figure out what is that value and how much is that worth to them and all of that. Yeah.
And it's also, I think confidence is a huge variable in that, which is why male copywriters and male dudes everywhere will consistently charge more than women will, because they got the kahunas to say a bigger number. And that can be what it comes down to, which
Right.
I hate for all of us. But it's such, having the confidence to say a bigger number is a really big part of pricing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, for any service provider, businesses, agencies, if you have enough leads coming in, you can test as well. And if you're getting, if you're charging 5,000 for a monthly retainer and you're getting people saying yes, then it's like, okay, cool. And maybe getting a few no's, you're priced at a good level. If you're getting yeses on every pricing, you probably need to go up. And if you're getting too many no's, you go down. And so it's like, yeah, really, I think just testing and seeing what are people willing to pay for? Because we might have in our heads one idea of, oh, they're going to pay this much, but I'm going to ask for more just to see. And then you might get a yes and be like, oh, okay, obviously, like I'm not correct here. So I think the testing is really important too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a copy quote calculator that will work out a quote. So it's all I love a sexy spreadsheet. But at the end of the day, there is an element of like, let's just put a number out there and we'll see what happens. And that's okay too.
Mhm.
But I think a big part of it is talking to being okay with talking about money,
Mhm.
being confident about your rates, and being okay with consistently putting them up because you are gaining more experience.
Mhm.
And there's with all the nuances within that, I just think we've got to drop the money issues
Mhm.
and step into that because we're running businesses.
Yeah.
We've got to be able to earn some money for it.
Well, and the people we're working with, if we can't have a conversation about money, like it's not going to be a very fun business relationship, I imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so with the pricing, going back to the AI that I mentioned, you're always going to have people who are like, I could hire someone cheaper. I could get AI to write this. And you have to be able to navigate those conversations
Mm.
and also be able to let people go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Realizing there's other better, bigger clients along the way.
Yeah, there's thousands, millions of business owners out there who all need help with their marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. And who will say yes once they meet you before they even hear the price. So some people don't even,
Yeah.
it's not even obviously it's a factor, but it's not important for some people. Yeah.
It's such a good point that you raised because and I think that's why the personality piece in our marketing is one that we most often shy away from because we're like, oh, I don't want to talk about myself. But I consider all the details of stuff that we like and love and value. They're like little Velcro hooks. So I'm looking at your background and I can see plants and a musical instrument and maybe a cat. And I'm like, oh, I have an ukulele. I love plants and I have a dog. So,
Mhm.
those kind of little Velcro hooks just fire off that. Me too. I think we have stuff in common, which would rapport will absolutely trump price. Okay, in most cases.
Mhm.
But that's why we need to put these parts of ourselves out there so that people can go, do you know what? I think we have stuff in common. I think working together would be a really great experience.
Mhm. Especially when like they might be interviewing 3 to 5 or more agencies. So if they can find
Yes.
common ground with you, that will put you ahead for sure. And I like the Velcro hooks. That was really cool.
Yeah. And the more you have, the stickier it is.
Hmm. Very cool. Very cool. Well, we're almost on time, but for people who want to know more about you and what you do, where can they find you online?
Yeah. My name is Belinda Weaver, so you could search for that. My business is called Copyright Matters. My website's my main space, so that's copyrightmatters.com. But I also hang out a lot on Instagram and LinkedIn. So if you search for Copyright Matters or Belinda Weaver, you'll find me. And if anyone would love to chat, please do say hello. So you'll see me. I've got short ginger hair. You look for the ginger face. That's what I usually say. But I would love to get a hello from anyone who's listening to this.
Hmm. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been really cool. And thank you, everyone, for listening.